Hey, I'm the composer Andrew Lloyd Fry, and this is an introduction to Miles Davis. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of his life and kind of some things that make his music unique and interesting, and then some specific albums if you're new to him to start exploring. So he was born in St. Louis. His dad was a dentist, and he was doing active in the music scene in high school, and this kind of life-changing experience happened where Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker came to town, and it was just like totally blew his mind, totally like life-changing experience. I think he set in with their band, so it was more than just like seeing them at a distance. So finishes high school, decides to go to Juilliard in New York City, which is also where Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie are. So I don't know how much of that was like he's just trying to get to New York, or if he wanted to go to Juilliard. So he finds them, connects with them, starts gigging with Charlie Parker, and he's kind of living this like double life of Juilliard and jazz gigs with Charlie Parker at night. And eventually he quit Juilliard, and he was Charlie Parker's just kind of like main, for a season, like his main go-to trumpet player. So it's interesting. So Be-bop, if you're not familiar with it, was this style of jazz that was like ridiculously fast. So it's like everything's at like 250 BPM, and chords are changing every 2 beats. I mean, it's a little bit of a Herculean feat to play some of that stuff. And interestingly, those types of things and that type of playing is not Miles Davis's like strong suit. So he could do it, and it wasn't like he sounded bad. But later on, as he kind of developed his own voice and was making his own albums under his own name, his style changed a lot, and it slowed down a lot. And he has this great quote that is hung up on my wall, and it's, sometimes it takes a long time to sound like yourself. And I think there was a season where it was like everyone else, try to sound like Charlie Parker, and that's really hard to do. And he kind of came into his own expression of playing a lot slower and way less notes, but you're really particular about your notes. Now, for Miles is one of my favorite musicians, and I think what's so great about him is like he's not the best trumpet player of all time. Like, I don't think anyone's saying that. Like, technical skill, speed, range. I wouldn't say he's like the best composer of all time. I mean, a lot of his things are fairly simple, but he's the master of taste. So in his playing, the notes he picks, in the bands he assembles, I mean, it's like every band he assembled is like this legendary jazz band. And it's just like his taste was really good, and he actually didn't have to have those other things just because he had such great taste. So I wanted to go over a couple albums and just give a little context around it. So it's in 1955 he assembled what's called the First Great Quintet. So this is his first like legendary band. And before that, it was like he would record albums and you just assemble musicians together for the date. But this was like, okay, we're like a band and we're gigging together. So obviously there's a lot of advantages to having that, and just like synergy and learning to play off each other. So he had Red Garland on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, Philly Joe Jones on drums, and he needed a saxophone player, and Sonny Rollins was his choice, and he said no. So Philly Joe Jones recommended John Coltrane. So and he became the saxophone player. So that is the First Great Quintet. They recorded some albums for Prestige, but the album that I wanted to recommend if you're new to Miles is Roundabout Midnight. So they did 4 albums for Prestige very quickly. It was like just kind of like fulfilling contracts, and those are good. But then they did this one for Columbia, Roundabout Midnight, and I think it's better. So I like this. I feel like John Coltrane plays a little stronger. I feel like the group is gelling a little bit more. And I really like the tunes selected. So there's like a Charlie Parker tune, and obviously Round Midnight by Thelonious Monk. And this album really bridges the gap between bebop and what was to come. It's like ultimate classic. Next, this is obvious, Kind of Blue. So 1959, so 4 years later. And this album's super important for a lot of reasons. So this is where Miles was doing like even more paring down in his playing, and then it started going into like composing. So this is famous for being kind of the main beginning of modal jazz, which is like the chords aren't changing at all or changing very much, and you're thinking much more like melodically versus lining up what you're playing with the chords. This is a chunk of the first great quintet. So it's got Coltrane and Paul Chambers, but it also has Cannonball Adderley and Jimmy Cobb on drums. And this one also has Bill Evans, which obviously is a nice touch. This album, he wrote all of the tunes, but it was pretty, a chunk of it was like pretty like in partnership with Bill Evans. They worked on a bit of it out together. Okay, and then the last one, this one, maybe not everyone would pick this. This is Nefertiti. So this is much later. I think it's like 1966, maybe 67. So, I mean, there's so many great Miles albums. It's hard to pick three, but this was my number three pick. And this is the second great quintet. So he kind of, after Kind of Blue, a lot of the band left. Coltrane left and Cannonball Adderley left. And I feel like Miles really thrived with creative partnerships. So there's Gil Evans, the jazz arranger, and he did projects with him. And I just feel like he needed that like other person. And this, maybe not everyone agrees with this, but after Kind of Blue, it's like, it's kind of like he went back in time a little bit, and he's doing the same tunes, and a lot of those albums after Kind of Blue are just, and this is like, again, personal preference, it's like aren't my favorite. So I feel like he was floundering a little bit in the early 60s. A lot's changing in the music scene, and Ornette Coleman's coming out, and obviously John Coltrane's now like leading his own group and doing more innovation, and Miles is like, I don't know, still playing If I Were a Bell and My Funny Valentine and walking like he has for like, I don't know, a long time at that point. So he assembles his second great quintet, which is a super historic jazz group, one of my favorite groups of all time. And it's Herbie Hancock on piano, Tony Williams on drums, which like he was like 17 at the time when he joined the band. Ron Carter on bass, and they were together for a little bit, and then maybe it was like a year later, Wayne Shorter joined. So, I mean, Herbie is like, as far as like jazz piano, I mean, it's like, it doesn't get better than that. Wayne Shorter is like my favorite jazz composer, and Tony Williams is like one of my favorite drummers. So it's just like the ultimate dream team. Now, this album, Nefertiti, has a lot of Wayne Shorter tunes, which I think they are all amazing. This one is probably a little less user-friendly, and it's a little bit more out there than the other ones, but it's not like crazy. So this album is kind of like very unique in its like openness. It's a little more abstract, and it's like medium. It's like avant-garde at a medium slow burn. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a really special album. All right, time for you to go listen.